Whether you're into true crime or not, we can all agree that the possibility of a serial perpetrator stalking the streets of your own town or city is completely terrifying. While the majority of serial killer cases become solved, there are a small percentage that are left unsolved. Older cases, such as the Zodiac, are unsolved, but some people take solace in the fact that the Zodiac is most likely deceased and has been for some time. However, here are 5 cases of serial killers who are still alive, but were never caught. Number 5. On November 20th, 2006, police in Egg Harbor Township, Atlantic City, New Jersey, made a horrifying discovery. In a drainage ditch just behind a motel, they found the remains of 4 women. They had been placed face down with their heads facing eastwards. The only items missing from the women were their shoes and socks. Police estimated that all 4 women had been eliminated between October and November of 2006 due to the state of some of the women's remains, and identification and cause of death was hard to determine. The 4 women were formally identified as 42-year-old Barbara Brader, 20-year-old Molly Jean Diltz, 35-year-old Kim Raffo, and 23-year-old Tracy Ann Roberts. All 4 women were known as night workers, and police heavily believed that this was their killer's motive. With the potential serial killer on the loose, the Atlantic City Police issued a $25,000 reward for details that led to any information about any of these 4 cases. As of 2020, the reward has remained untouched, and police are not any closer to figuring out the mystery. There have been several subjects in the Eastbound Strangler case, but so far, no evidence has been brought forward to charge anyone. Some have theorized that not 1, but 2 men are responsible for the murders. They believe that the 2 men would lure the women in with the promise of work before strangling them. A website called stalkinc.com has provided a very in-depth psychological profile for the Eastbound Strangler. Part of the profile reads, "In his pre-offense mode, he may have spoken out about the sinful nature of sex work, and he may have voiced economic concerns about the workers destroying Atlantic City. He may often be heard saying things such as they got what they deserved." The profile also lists the possibility that the perpetrator has a prior record of harassment towards women, and in the months leading up to the killings, he may have gone through a stressful event such as a divorce or losing a loved one. There have been no new murders that the Atlantic City Police know of, and the $25,000 reward for information still stands. Whoever the Strangler is, he's still out there, possibly living in Atlantic City, waiting to strike again. If you have any information, you're urged to contact the Atlantic City Police Department at 609-926-4051. Number 4. Between 2005 and 2007, a serial killer known only as the B1 Butcher terrorized the residents of Namibia. His name comes from his method of killing and disposal, as all of his victims were found along the national B1 highway that stretches the full length of the country. In the 2 years that the Butcher terrorized Namibia, the remains of 5 women were found in separate trash bags. Even more disturbingly, the body parts found signs of freezer burn, indicating that the perpetrator had kept them in storage for some time before dumping them along the B1. The coroner commented that all of the body parts had been removed with surgical precision, indicating that someone with medical training is responsible. Although they cannot rule out the possibility that the killer may work in an abattoir, the B1's method of killing seems to have differed from victim to victim. Some of them were hit over the head, while others were strangled. So far, only 3 of the victims have been identified as Juanita Mabula, Melanie Jantz, and Sana Helena Garros, leaving investigators with 2 Jane Does and a serial killer on their hands. A German man by the name of Heinz Nierim was looked into as being a viable suspect in the B1 Butcher case, but was acquitted due to a lack of evidence. Police said they thought of him as a suspect as he'd been accused of a violent crime against a 29-year-old in August of 2007, though he was acquitted of the crime and any involvement in the B1 Butcher case. As of 2020, the police aren't any closer to catching the B1 Butcher. Investigators from South Africa were brought in to aid in the investigation, but so far they've yielded no results. Number 3. Between 2007 and 2008, Brazil had a predatory serial killer stalking the Picurus Park. The individual is known as the Picurus Park Killer, or sometimes the Rainbow Maniac, as he claimed the lives of 13 men. The prevailing police theory is that the perpetrator sees himself on a mission to rid the street of quote-unquote sinners. Police Chief Paulo Fernando Fortunato told the Guardian newspaper, in his head, he thinks he's doing a cleanup job. He doesn't like homosexuals, he hates them. Picurus Park is a known meeting spot for the local LGBTQ community. Gay men would meet in the park for sexual encounters or to socialize. The Rainbow Maniac used this to his advantage and would lure men into secluded spots in the park. 12 of the 13 victims had been shot in the back of the head with a .38 caliber weapon. They were also found half naked. A link has also been made to similar crimes in the city of Osasco, as the victims there were found shot dead with a similar weapon. If it's the same person, then Brazil has a very large problem on their hands. Brazil has a dark underbelly when it comes to hate crimes. According to an article written for the Guardian newspaper titled "The Rainbow Killer Stalks Brazilian Gays," written in December of 2008, there were 122 homophobic killings in Brazil in 2007 alone. Their neighbors, the US and Mexico, had 25 and 35 respectively. It's also been estimated that between 1980 and 2006, at least 2,680 gay people were killed based on their sexuality. As the Rainbow Maniac has never been caught, it's entirely possible that he's moved on to a new city to begin his cycle of killing all over again. Number 2. 26-year-old Robert Faulkner opened up the Payless Shoe Source where she was a manager on April 8, 1992. Robin wasn't supposed to be on shift that day, but she was covering for a colleague that had phoned in sick. This was supposed to be the most out-of-the-ordinary thing to happen on that April day. A customer would later walk in to the Pendleton Pike, Indianapolis store to find 26-year-old Robin dead in the back of the shop, where she'd been shot in the head once before her attacker escaped. An eyewitness claimed that he saw a man who looked like he'd been sleeping in his clothes, sitting outside of the shop for around 30 minutes before going inside. The eyewitness also added he was rifling through his bag, talking to himself and giggling. The attack on Robin Faulkner was not a one-off attack. Just 3 days later in Wichita, Kansas, Patricia Smith and Patricia Majors were found shot dead in a bridal shop where they worked. Over the next few months, 4 more victims would be claimed by the man known only as the I-70 killer. All of the crime scenes were dotted along I-70, which runs from Baltimore, Maryland, down to Cove Fort, Utah. It didn't take long for the police to connect the dots and realize that all of the murders took place in or near a shopping mall located just off of I-70. Robbery didn't seem to be the motive, as nothing was taken from the shops. The person simply walked in, fired at his victims, and left. There have been a few suspects in the I-70 killer case as of yet, but no solid evidence has come to light. A profile of the I-70 killer was created in 1994. Police estimated that he was a white male, between 5'8" and 6 feet tall, weighing around 170 pounds. In 1994, they estimated that he was between 35 and 40 years old, making him 61 to 66 today, making it a huge possibility that he is still alive. Physically, he's described to have reddish hair, thin lips, and a high forehead with lazy eyelids. He appeared to be well dressed, but that does contradict the eyewitness testimony that said he looked disheveled. If you have any information about the identity of the I-70 killer, you're urged to contact the local FBI office. And remember, no tip is too small or insignificant, and while this case has sat cold for 26 years, it's never too late to bring justice to the victims' families. Number 1. The Danilovsky Maniac is an unidentified Russian serial killer that killed 7 people in the early 2000s in the city of Vologda Oblast, Russia. When translated to English, his name means the maniac with dull eyes. So far, the official victim count is listed as 7. However, there's a large possibility that the maniac is responsible for many more. The maniac would stalk and target his victims while they were in desolated areas such as construction sites or abandoned buildings. Many people would walk through the abandoned buildings as it was quicker than walking around them, and that's how Russian police believed that the individual found his victims. When investigating the disappearance of 18-year-old Sveta Stepanova, they came across the Danilovsky Maniac's dumping grounds in an abandoned building. Scattered in and around the crime scene were photographs and drawings of an extreme sexual nature, and it was clear that the maniac's motive was purely sexual. The final murder that has been attributed to the maniac is the murder of Natalia Sokolova. Natalia's parents were fishing on the banks of the Sheksna River, waiting for her to join them so they could spend the day together. But Natalia never showed up. Concerned, her parents called her to make sure that everything was okay, but her phone went straight to voicemail. As far as her parents knew, Natalia wasn't too far away and would be joining them within a matter of minutes. So how had the maniac managed to kill her within a matter of minutes? It wasn't until days later that police found her body in a decimated and remote area close to a bridge. Whoever had done this had managed to attack her, kill her, turn her phone off, and dispose of her body without anyone else in the area knowing. Looking through true crime books, it's pretty obvious that Russia and the once Soviet Union were no strangers to violence and serial killers, but the Danilovsky Maniac scared even the most seasoned detectives. A quote from one of the detectives involved in the case reads, "Even a makeshift murder weapon was discovered, a 2-stick stranglehold and a cable. Note that the maniac counted many points in advance and did not use factory products in the form of a stranglehold, in the form of leads, belts, or etc., but he made it himself and dropped it." The Danilovsky Maniac stopped killing as mysteriously as he had started. Whether it's because he moved to another area of Russia or is imprisoned for a different crime is unknown. He's described as being between 35 and 40 years old, 175 centimeters to 180 centimeters, with short hair, a round face, and deep-set eyes. If you have any information about the maniac, you're urged to contact 8202-507583. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.